Number 23 in the 42 Ideas on Leadership comes to us from the book Getting to Yes, which is one of the core texts on principled negotiation. It was originally written in 1981 by Fisher and William Ury, who founded the Harvard Negotiating Project. The edition we're going to look at is a revised edition from 1991, which they wrote with Bruce Patton. The method that they describe in Getting to Yes is four main elements: interests versus positions, separating people from the problem, options for mutual gain, and using objective criteria. There's one other area which we'll look at towards the end of the video. Interests versus positions. You may go in and ask to buy a car, and your position is that you're prepared to pay $10,000. They may come back and say, well, we want $15,000. Both of those are examples of positions. Your interests would be you're looking for a secure, reliable car that you can carry children around and bring them to school or collect them after sports events. They would be interests, and then you try to find a car that meets those interests. When we identify interests by asking why and why not, we have to be careful that we're not accusing the other people with these questions. Sometimes asking the question, why are you doing this, or why are you thinking like that, can come across as a little bit aggressive. But if you can explain it in terms of, I'm trying to have a better idea of what your interests are so that we can find a solution that meets both your needs and our needs, that's a little bit different. Acknowledging their interests means that you understand that they have interests, but it doesn't mean that you agree with them or that you're going to give in. And finally, an idea that runs through the whole book is this concept of being hard on the problem, which is the issues you're not necessarily going to give in on, but you're soft on the people, which means that you build a working relationship. We're going to look at that in a little bit more detail now. But you do not give in just to be nice to the other side. You separate the areas. So this is the next one. Separating people from the problem. Separating people from the problem does not mean ignoring the people. It's exactly the opposite. It means developing a strategy for the people and developing a strategy for the issues and the problems that you're negotiating. First element is perspective taking. You have to get into their shoes and see how they look at the negotiation. And it's also necessary, if this is a true negotiation, that both parties are involved. You're not just coercing them into accepting a decision. When it comes to emotion, there's an awareness that emotion exists, and sometimes emotions can make the negotiation run smoothly, but they can also upset and ruin the negotiation. It can be a good idea to get these emotions out in the open and to maybe identify the emotions in the other people. I sense that you're feeling like this, or this is my impression of what you're saying and what you're feeling. Do not react if they attack you with emotion or if they use strong emotions with you. This only creates a spiral. Communication is important here. You need to listen. You need to be clear about your ideas, as well as and making sure that you identify the correct moment to communicate with them. And finally, this area about you and not them means you talk about your emotions, you talk about what you're looking for. You don't necessarily accuse them of anything, or you don't say what's in their head. You can say, I have the feeling, or I sense this, but you don't say, you are this. Prevention. The idea of here is building a working relationship means that if there is a misunderstanding later, because you've developed a professional working relationship, there's a greater chance that we overcome those speed bumps. Again, you focus on the problem. You do not focus on the people when there is conflict. You do not get personal. You do not insult the other side. You focus on solving the problem. Options for mutual gain. Again, I want to insist here that the idea of this negotiation is that both sides can voluntarily agree to it. If one side is coerced into it, then it's not really a negotiation. If this means that both sides voluntarily agree, well then their problem is your problem. We also believe that if we're negotiating using principles, it's possible to find a solution that makes us both better off after the negotiation. This is a positive sum game, that as a result of playing the game, we both are better off afterwards. The idea of prescription is that if you're working with the other side and you see the negotiation as a problem to be solved together rather than as a competition to beat them, then you can feel free to brainstorm possible solutions without necessarily feeling that anything that's reached in the brainstorming is a decision. Broadening options simply means looking at things from different perspectives, maybe asking other people external to the negotiation what their opinions are, trying to see if there's a greater scope or if there's areas that you can bring in that will make it more possible to find an agreement that is a positive sum agreement. And finally, that last area again is mutual gain. Shared interests are great if you can focus on shared interests that you're both looking for the same thing, and therefore we're talking about we. And different interests are also okay. Different interests means that if one person is looking for the car and the other person is looking for the money, then you can reach an agreement because of different interests. Final area of the method is the objective criteria. This means that you should be trying to, instead of bluffing or lying to the other side, you should spend your time looking for fair standards and fair procedures to support your arguments. It also means, therefore, that you should try and spend some time in the negotiation agreeing on the theory and the principles that you're going to use in the negotiation and trying to agree on the criteria you will use to define what you're talking about. It means, of course, that sometimes you will not make as much money as you could if you were bluffing, but it definitely means that you will also protect yourself in the many other times where you would lose when they're better at bluffing or lying than you. This avoids dishonesty. When you're a competitive negotiator, the person who is better at lying and better at cheating may win. But when it comes to principal negotiations, both sides benefit from using this methodology. And finally, do not give in to pressure. Just because they are attacking you or just because they're putting you under pressure, if you're using objective criteria, there's no need for you to retreat. Finally, if these 4 elements do not create an agreement, you may have to go with your BATNA. And your BATNA is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This is what is your best alternative if you get up and walk out of the negotiation. It is not your alternatives before the negotiation. It is your alternatives if you get up and walk out. The stronger your alternative, the more power you have in the negotiation. So therefore, you should spend time before the negotiation developing your BATNA. Together, this is the principled negotiation style outlined in Getting to Yes. Interests versus positions, separating the people from the problem, options for mutual gain, and using objective criteria. That's number 23 in the 42 Ideas on Leadership, Getting to Yes, by Fisher and Ury in 1981, and then also with Patton in 1991.